his testimony with us. Okay.
I grew up in a Christian home and was raised and homeschooled by two amazing parents who loved the Lord. They really sheltered my brother and I. God had saved them both from reckless partying lifestyles and wanted to protect us from having to go through the same things. I was a good kid. I knew all my memory verses, had a pocket full of Bible bucks, and I was the one to beat at sword drills. But there was always a deep longing for the acceptance of the world. I hated the fact that I didn't fit in with the kids from football that wasn't allowed to watch what they watched and do what they did. I just wanted to be normal. In 2003, when I was 13, the cancer that my dad had been battling for years started to get worse. I remember praying every night that God would heal him, and I thought for sure that God would because he loved us. But a couple weeks after my 14th birthday, my dad died on the couch in my mom's arms. I couldn't believe it. I became really angry at God. I walked into my first day of public school the next day at Ridley High School, and I wasn't exactly in the best shape to make friends. I felt alone and ended up finding acceptance from the gothic kids who smoked weed before school and got drunk on the weekends. I failed out within months and went back to homeschooling with the church kids, but I was still in rebellion. In 2005, I had a dramatic experience with God at youth camp and went up for the altar call. I was also baptized by Kenny that week. I felt like I was truly saved, but I wasn't rooted in the Word or community, and the fire started to go out in the coming months. I started public school again at Pencrest High School, and this time it was different. I was accepted and well-liked. I was on the football team. I had a lot of friends. And although I professed to be a Christian at first and tried to live a distinguished life, I started to be influenced and conformed to the world. I started drinking at parties and smoking weed constantly. I was finally viewed as cool in the world's eyes, and I became a slave to that persona. When I got to college, the partying became more intense and more often. I remember thinking, I'll have my fun now, and I'll go back to the Jesus thing later. I got arrested several times for underage drinking. I remember my mom saying, God is after you, and me thinking, I wish he would just let me be. When I failed out of college and came home, the friends and parties were gone, but the addictions and reckless lifestyle were still there. I started to see how I needed something more, and I would come to BGC and the movie theater once in a while to try to get rid of my guilt, fill my empty soul. But I always kept an arm's length from any real community because I didn't want to confess or repent anything. Last summer, I felt like I truly ran out of options for happiness. The constant weed and booze and gambling wasn't enough anymore. I was going to music festivals and doing ecstasy and acid as one last effort to fulfill only what God could. I knew that God was calling me to turn from my sins, but I just kept thinking one more party, one more concert, one more beach house, and then I'll put the Christian handcuffs on. The end of last summer, I came out to BGC again, and someone invited me to go in this care group, and I decided to go. We sat around the fire and passed the ball around, and when you got the ball, you had to share something happy and something crappy, which I love that, Jesse. When it got to me, I told him that I was having trouble having faith in God, and that if he was really sovereign and loved us, then why is my dad dead? And why is my brother a heroin addict? And why does my mom cry herself to sleep? I also shared that my brother Destin was going to court the next day and being sent to jail. Immediately, Jesse and the rest of them gathered around me and laid hands on me. Jesse prayed for my brother and asked God to reveal himself to me in a way where there would be no doubt it was him. The next day, even though it made no legal sense, the judge had mercy on my brother and let him go to rehab instead of jail. That was the first time I'd ever seen a prayer so explicitly answered. I came back to community group a couple weeks later, and in a discussion, someone mentioned how amazing God's grace is, and then how we're forgiven for our past sins and even our future sins. I raised my hand, which I found out now you don't have to do in community group. And I said, so if God forgives everything, why do I have to stop smoking and drinking? At that time, it seemed like such an intelligent question. Noah Lewis patiently said, you know, Gabe, it's all laid out there in Romans 6. You should check it out. And I'm like, good one, dude. But I went home and I sat in my garage. I was drinking beer and smoking a bowl. And just so I could tell Noah I did, I read Romans 6. And for the first time, it made sense to me. I read 7 and 8 and I started to cry as God finally opened my eyes to the true meaning of the gospel. That my old self was crucified with Jesus Christ so that I may walk in newness of life. I wanted to change and was frustrated that it wasn't happening overnight. I got plugged into a fight club and anything else I could at BGC. And my brothers and sisters in this church patiently walked me through a lot of issues and questions I had. God started to transform my heart and my desires and has delivered me from the addictions of weed, gambling, and drunkenness. He's given me a hunger for the word, a thirst for righteousness, and a hatred for sin. I finally feel fulfilled in Christ and know what he means when he said that he came that we may have life and have it abundantly. And those years that I thought that becoming a Christian meant being shackled up and kept from all the fun, I now know that to be the opposite. Galatians 5:1 says, "For freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit back to a yoke of slavery." I can't tell you how hyped I am to be a part of the body of Very One Grace Church and use my life and my gifts to proclaim His name. I love you guys.